Dominic Reyes, nonetheless, is still an excellent fighter. Somebody who John couldn't finish, and somebody who a lot of people, as I said, thought he beat. Yuri beat him up from the start to the end of that fight in the second round with just a violent KO. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Boy, oh boy, Nick. Yuri Prochazka.
Yes.
And I'm sorry if I'm botching his name. It's a difficult one to pronounce. But he is a prolific fighter. Has there ever been anybody who 2 fights into their UFC career has made this much noise and is about to fight for a title?
Now, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, you're looking at Brock Lesnar. You know, those type of people are the only type of people in that same company. So
Yeah.
Yuri is definitely making a statement. You know, we talked so much about the hype train of Khamzat Chimaev last year and how hot he came into the UFC. And I understand he had very few fights going into the UFC, and Yuri has had an extensive career outside of the UFC. But this guy's come in like a storm, and I feel like he's truly is the rightful #1 contender to fight against the winner of Glover and Jan when that happens later this year.
Yeah, no question. I mean, Dominic Reyes not so long ago was the guy that everybody was talking about got robbed against John Jones.
Right.
A lot of people, including myself, thought he won that fight and thought that now that John is out of the picture, that he's the best guy in the division. Jan Blachowicz proved that was not in fact true, that he was.
Yeah.
But Dominic Reyes, nonetheless, is still an excellent fighter. Somebody who John couldn't finish, and somebody who a lot of people, as I said, thought he beat. Yuri beat him up from the start to the end of that fight in the second round with just a violent KO.
Yeah, and it was a back and forth fight. I do want to say Dominic Reyes looked great in there. He did throw a lot of things that landed.
Yeah.
And fighting an unorthodox guy like Yuri is very tough because you literally have no way of gaining experience against a guy like that until you're in the cage with him. You can't call up fighters from anywhere in the world and say, hey, I need you to mimic this guy and get a similar look so you can get a familiar feel with that type of style. He's a very unorthodox, very interesting striker, and he seems to mix everything really well. He threatens takedowns and then comes up with crazy uppercuts, but they're wildly accurate. So I feel like Yuri is one of these guys that we're going to need to figure out how to pronounce his name. We might have to wait for John Anik to say it a couple of times on air so we can get the pronunciation correct. But he seems to be one of those guys that we're going to be talking about for a while now.
No question about that. I was most impressed by his violence and his come forward sort of style, as well as his accuracy and his unorthodox angles that he was throwing shots. I mean, he's standing in front of Dominic Reyes, a guy who's got tremendous power.
Right.
Somebody, I mean, you're talking about light heavyweight. Anybody can knock anybody out, but Dominic Reyes is the top of the heap, and Yuri's fighting him with his hands down, throwing, and he demonstrated a great chin because Dominic Reyes did land some really nice counter punches. It wasn't a total lopsided beatdown. It was a beatdown, but Dominic did land his shots and did have his moments. But Yuri's shot selection, the feinting, the angles at which those uppercuts were coming from, and then ultimately the finish with that elbow, he said he was just flowing in there. He's read a book, and I forget the name of it. I wish I could remember. He mentioned it in the post-fight. A book about, I think it's The Five Rings. It's a martial arts book. And basically it changed the way he looks at martial arts, his mentality. You notice the haircut. That was all paying homage to the traditions and the origins of a lot of the martial arts that we see on display inside of the octagon. The guy's only 28 years old. He's got 28 pro wins, 25 of them by knockout.
Ridiculous.
He's going to be fighting the winner of Glover Jan. I love that Jan and Yuri are starting to kind of put this fight together, but Jan also at the same time straddling the fence and towing the line and giving Glover Teixeira his due, saying, I'm a man of my word. Glover gets the next shot, as I said. But, you know, my anticipation is that I'm going to win that fight, and then it's you and I in a great European showdown. And he made some reference to Czech versus Poland. It went over my head. I don't get it, but I'm sure that some of you guys that are watching from that part of the world probably knew exactly what the Polish sledgehammer meant.
Yeah, we might have to check into that and see if we can figure out the whole meaning behind it. And I would love that. You know, I don't know how Europe is right now as far as opening back up, but I feel like that would do pretty well either in Poland or in the Czech Republic, somewhere in Europe. That would be a great main event. And obviously, I can't wait to see it. one thing that we always talk about as far as champions go is you want to see somebody that can prove themselves to be great. And one of the ways you can do that is by beating people of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Jan Blachowicz kind of has that opportunity. He's got a fight with a 41-year-old or 42, if I'm wrong, Glover Teixeira. And then he's talking about turning around quick and maybe later this year, fighting the 28-year-old, the next generation guy. And if he's able to get wins over both of them, he is kind of doing that where he's able to take on multiple generations. And then, maybe he'll fight somebody else that's closer to his age. And then he's kind of taken out all the three major brackets as far as age goes. I really like it. I really think the fight between Blachowicz and Yuri is very interesting. But we can't look past Glover Teixeira because I know Glover has what it takes. He has the skills to win that light heavyweight title. I think it's going to be a tough fight. I'm favoriting Jan to win it, and I think we're going to have a fireworks performance between Yuri and Jan, and it's going to be a calculated fight, but an insane one at that.
Yeah. Listen, even if Glover does pull the upset, the fight between Glover and Yuri is equally interesting to me. I mean, if you think back to the Glover Teixeira versus Thiago Santos fight, Thiago Santos threw everything, including the kitchen sink at Glover, and Glover's just got, he proved that he's got the granite chin of all granite chins, eating every one of those shots, and ultimately catching a submission victory over Santos was just insane. So Yuri's going to land his shots on Glover, no doubt, but good luck taking that guy out. That's like trying to tranquilize a bull or something like that. And then same with Jan. I mean, Israel Adesanya, you saw was very crisp with his shots, and we know we know him for his prolific striking. He wasn't able to do any damage against Jan. Jan's got a granite chin as well. Either way this shakes out, I'm very happy that the title fight after the next title fight is going to have Yuri Prochazka as one of the two men competing.
Yeah, he's definitely earned it. And I think, he chills for a few months, watches it, and keeps getting better as a young athlete. We're going to see an improved version of him, which is kind of scary because he seems to have adopted, the true martial artist mentality of I'm always forever going to be a student. I'm going to be learning, and then I get to perform for you guys every so often. And then other than that, I'm just in the gym learning, trying to get better, trying to improve my skills. So I love that, and I do see his progress going up and up and up as far as, his potential is limitless, truly. But Yuri is the way he was striking last night was so wild that it kind of explains why he has so many knockouts out of the 28 victories. He's got 25. You said when you get in these crazy firefights and do what he does, which is flow, you wind up doing these crazy things, and the momentum of your opponent coming towards you, plus the momentum from a crazy 100% power shot like he throws, like that spinning elbow, is going to wind up in resulting in KOs, and that's exactly what we're seeing out of him.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, you could make the argument that he's not even in his prime yet, let alone coming into it. He's only 28 years old. He's got a lot of fight experience for somebody that age, but especially in the higher weight classes, what we've seen is you tend to get better as you get older.
Yes.
One thing that I couldn't help but think last night as I'm watching this fight is, and you using Dominic Reyes as sort of the measuring stick, and obviously MMA math can't just be, it's not apples to apples.
Right.
But Dominic Reyes is the guy who a lot of people thought beat Jon Jones, including myself. He's now been knocked out twice. Mm-hmm. Jan Blachowicz as well as Yuri Prochazka last night. If Jon Jones was still in the light heavyweight division, do you think that maybe there would have been a changing of the guard and maybe Jon isn't or wouldn't be the best light heavyweight in the world right now?
It's hard to say, and after seeing what Jon's done over his entire career, I wouldn't bet money that any of the guys at light heavyweight right now would beat him. But I definitely saw the gap closing a bit on Jon Jones and the rest of the pack in his last few fights at light heavyweight. Dominic Reyes, it was a very competitive fight. Thiago Santos was a very competitive fight. I believe Jan Blachowicz would have been even closer. Maybe it would have been, it could have gone the other way. And now we're seeing, if Yuri is able to come over and beat Jan Blachowicz and take his title from him, then I think we might say, okay, maybe Jon Jones left right at the right time. And this next generation was just coming over the mountain, and Jon Jones might have seen him coming and knew something we didn't know, and was like, you know what, I'm gonna go move myself up and create my legacy in a different division, which is going to further my GOAT status and all of that. And plus, by the way, these young guys that are on their way up, they are very good. They've been watching me over the years. They've been learning what I do. They've kind of had a target on Jon's back. Everybody in light heavyweight mixed martial arts has been watching Jon Jones, just like any division. But when you're in your division, you have a little bit more of a close eye on them, and you learn from what they do well, what they do wrong, in case you ever get that opportunity to fight them. Whereas the heavyweights haven't really had their eye on what Jon Jones has been doing, at least not a sharp eye. Of course, they watch all the fights and stuff, but when you have somebody in your division, you have to keep extra close attention to them. When somebody jumps up into your division, you kind of get blindsided by him. Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think to break down all of his films. So I think Jon Jones, that'll benefit him in the heavyweight division. Light heavyweight, I think some of those guys might have his number or would be able to figure it out. Yeah,
Jon is definitely in the proverbial space between a rock and a hard place here. You got Francis Ngannou, the Rock at 265, and then the hard place is Yuri and Jan down at light heavyweight. So who knows? I mean, what a great time to be an MMA fan.
Yeah.
What a great time for the light heavyweight division.
Yeah.
It wasn't long ago that we were talking about maybe Johnny Walker would be the guy to come up and challenge Jon. And now it's Yuri Prochazka, a guy who wasn't even in the UFC 2 fights ago, has now knocked out Dominic Reyes and Volkan Ozdemir. It's just
the two guys. Those were the two guys not too long ago. And there was a lack of depth at light heavyweight for a while. And so much so that they were like, well, which direction can we go? And you saw middleweights, Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman, go, you know what, maybe we could insert ourselves 1 or 2 wins because we've earned the title at a different division, and we could be fighting for a title at light heavyweight. Now it seems we've got a nice pack at the top of 205. So I'm really happy to see that. I love when you can literally over the course of a couple months watch a resurgence of a division, and that's exactly what we're seeing at light heavyweight.
For sure. Guys, thanks so much for watching our video. Were you guys as blown away by that incredible main event and Yuri Prochazka's performance as we were? Let us know in the comments, and let us know, who do you think wins the title fight between Jan and Glover, and how does Yuri stack up against either of those two gentlemen? As always, guys, we really appreciate you watching our content. If you've enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out tremendously. And check us out on audio where you listen to those podcasts. Have a wonderful day.
Peace.